Hi, guys, and welcome back to another episode of the Green Dragon Podcast. I'm your host, Aiden.
And your fellow host, Tom.
And your fellow host, Jake.
Tom's back. He took a trip to Vegas. He's returned to us. He hasn't heard our love letters from Trump yet, so that's pending reaction there. Maybe we'll do a Tom reacts video, and we'll post it on the Instagram or YouTube. But he hasn't been blessed yet with my impersonations, which were very poor last week. So if you listen to that, if you haven't listened to it, you should go listen to it, because I did a pretty poor Trump impersonation, and I don't know, Jake, you can be the judge of it. Was my Biden any better than Trump?
I think Biden's voice itself is a poor impersonation of a human being. So I can't criticize the Biden too much.
Yeah, I know. It's like it's pretty hard to impersonate something that's not human. It's tough to have reference points. That was a lot of fun. So we'll probably have Peter back on the podcast again sometime, because he's a lot smarter than us, we've realized, and I think I think when it comes to computers, at least I need to raise my IQ somehow, and I think Peter might be the only way to do that.
Yeah, in a world full of people that like to call themselves experts, I think he's one that I could actually look towards as an expert, a reputable source.
That's fair enough. Field. Yeah, exactly. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm with you there, Jake. Yeah, but no, Tom took a little week-long trip. He went to Sin City. He went to Vegas for the 10X growth conference. So that's pretty exciting. Tom, did you have a good time? You want to give us a little recap on your explorations? I forgot to ask you also, was our friend John there as well? Was John able to make it to the conference?
Yes. So
okay. I thought I saw something on his story.
Yeah, he was on the show a couple weeks ago. That was 2 weeks ago, right?
Yeah, 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Okay. So he and I met up down in Vegas and then went to the growth conference together, and it was just absolutely amazing. It's hosted by Grant Cardone, who is, I think, considered the world's leader in salesmanship, business influencing, business growth, pretty much everything around business. Grant Cardone is your guy. And it was 3 days, and it was just loaded up with some of the best content I've heard ever. Like he had Dana White in on his first day, and Dana White was dropping bombs about truth, talking about his new business venture with the Power Slap and some other stuff, and then there was Robert Herjavec on. He's one of the sharks from Shark Tank. It was really interesting. Grant also had a lady called, her name was Kathy Wood, and she is the CEO and founder of ARK Invest. They do a lot of futuristic technologies investing. She had a lot of interesting things talking about how she thinks blockchain and autonomous vehicles are the future. It's pretty interesting. And then the next day we had some other great speakers. That there was in between all the speakers, he had his guys come up and talk about success stories, because people found Grant's products through the growth conference, got onto them, and then seen dramatic success. And there were a couple of businesses where people couldn't really break past the point where they were losing money quickly, and they like either triple or quadruple their income in their business in 1 year. And it was really incredible. Like they would share the stats of like what it actually looks like to put in some of the techniques and strategies to the full potential. And one of Grant's companies, Cardone Ventures, their primary job is to do that, right? To help you get. They have like these breaking points they talked about, like in your business, there's certain plateaus that you hit, and they help you break past each of those so you can keep expanding. So it was just wonderful, and I got to meet a lot of really cool people there. Made some great networking connections. A couple people are interested in working with us with Lifeline. And then awesome. He had like the most intense introduction to any event or anything entertainment I've ever seen. So he had like this stage in the center, and he had screens that were double-sided that went around the whole thing. Then he had screens everywhere else in the whole building with rigging, with lights, lasers, and then the stage itself had like flame launchers in it and like fireworks launchers. And so before it started, he had like this 15-minute introduction of just like what 10X is. And he had like his phrases come up on screen, and he had like these like, it sounded like you were watching the start of like an apocalyptic movie, because he had like air raid sirens starting, and then they had like submarines to make it feel like something was about to happen, and it just was so exciting. And then to finish out, he like each day he would bring someone on that like, holy smoke, try to get him here. And so day 2 he brought Megan Kelly on, which was really cool. She talked a lot about the stuff in the world, and she was not having any filter. She was just saying what she thought about the situations in the world, what she thought about what's going on with the family, like how they're trying to attack us. You know, how the Medicare system is not what it should be. And then to finish out on the 3rd day, he brought in Mark Wahlberg and Tom Brady to finish out. And apparently Mark Wahlberg was filming a movie down the street. So he told the guys that he's going to be out for a couple hours, drove down the street, hopped onto the car, then went back to shooting. And then Tom Brady was on, and it was just ecstatic. It was so cool because we were about 200 feet away from the stage, so we could like see these people like right there, and then a few billionaires walked right by me. It was pretty cool. We probably recognized them. It was just such an amazing experience being close to people that are doing great things, and in an environment where there's so much energy around wanting to become better as a person and build your business. So yeah, it was an incredible experience.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. Yeah, there is something like pretty special when you get that, like, you know, you go to different places, and different places have different energies, and you can always, like, when you walk into, whether it's an event or a room with certain people, you know, and it has that certain like electric energy, you leave that experience, or you leave that room, or you leave that situation, and you feel like more energized than you walked in. So I know exactly what you feel there, you know? I mean, it's an amazing feeling. And that, like, almost in itself is like it's almost like if you needed, like, and not to say that motivation's everything, because motivation isn't always there, but like if you need that extra like kickstart boost, like, in life, I think just surrounding yourself with like-minded people is always a really good bet. And when you're surrounded by people that, share the same mindset or values or kind of that same energy that you want to bring. I think energy is like everything, right? Especially if you want to be successful at something, you need to bring that certain amount of energy. Like most good salespeople aren't like a downer, like person that's just kind of like, well, if you do this, it may work. No, like usually they're really positive. They bring that positive energy. So like you want to surround yourself with people that are also positive too. So I think that's pretty cool. How many people do you think were at this event? Do you know the numbers?
It was about 5,000.
Oh wow, that's a lot. Yeah, that's and so then was it set up like they have like was it kind of like a showroom after like the main keynote speakers that people kind of walk around, or did you just walk around like the I how was it in an arena or was it
Yeah,
in
it was
like a
kind of. It was like this conference room for the MGM Grand, so that's what it was.
mm-hmm.
And so they had pretty much everyone just staying in that hotel for the conference.
Okay.
And then we just come down the hall, and in front of the conference hall, he had all those booths set up for different companies, so you could connect it. And then he had all the salespeople there. Some of the greatest salespeople I've been around. Yeah. It's really hard to say no. Well, yeah, I sent you a couple of messages, Aiden, because they're insisting that we get on programming. We want to. It's just cash flow at the moment. So
yeah, they're persistent.
Very.
And that's what makes a good salesperson. You gotta create. You gotta create. You gotta create the sense of urgency.
Yes, they do that very well.
Which, by the way, if you're listening, quick side note: go buy a T-shirt now because they're probably going to sell out. Like I'm 99.9. I'm kidding, but we do have some new designs on the website, and you should go check them out. We're going to come out with this alpha T-shirt. Actually, I think as we speak, it might be live. I have to double check on that. I could be wrong. But by the time this is up, it will be live. So go check out this website because it's a badass t-shirt. And it's got alpha written on the front. And on the back, it's got the alpha nutrition values. Maybe I could pull that up at some point. I'll try to pull it up here so if you're watching this, you can see it.
Oh, yeah.
But that's kind of my 10-second plug here. If you're listening to this, that was your cue to pull up Lifeline.usa.store and go shop around a little bit at our apparel.
It's good stuff.
Yeah, it's good stuff. Just saying. All right, continue. Sorry, Tom. Sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're good.
Yeah. But
so yeah, then they would have there's like 4 tiers. So there's diamond ticket holders, premier, VIP, and executive. And I was an executive. So they had like 4 stages of seating in the arena. And then afterwards, they had like networking events. So different classes of people go to different areas to network. On Wednesday night, they rented out one of the nightclubs in the MGM as another networking event. And then it was like that and like throwing a party. It was mostly just loud music. It was like, so it was an okay party. I mean, I feel bad for all those people that have to work there because they're all wearing earplugs. Because it was so loud, like you couldn't even talk to people.
Yeah.
But we did meet a couple neat people there, and I have to say I don't think I could live the nightlife very often. I think that was
it was pretty detrimental.
Well, it wasn't like detrimental. It was just so much noise.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't anything bad happening because it was all like people wanting to.
Yeah.
But it was just like so much noise. And they had like this ceiling in there that was like lit up and it would like come down in different shapes while the music was playing. And they had like these lasers. And they had these weird things. I don't know if you guys have ever seen these, but they're like steam launchers. I don't know what they're for, but it's really weird. But like when the bass would drop, this guy would turn all these steam machines on and go, psh,
Oh, like were
up.
they like steam or were they like smoke makers? Like were they like the smoke machines?
They weren't smoke machines, they were just like steamers. So like the steam would evaporate right away. It'd just be like
Huh.
this loud whistle sound. Kind of like if you're pushing brakes on a train.
I guess I guess I don't party enough. I'm not. I'm not in the loop with what's in.
Well, I don't think you're missing out on anything. Yeah, so
that's awesome. Did you line up any guests, Tom? Did you get out there and talk to the ladies and line us up any female guests for the show?
I have a couple possible people I might want to join.
Oh, really?
But yeah, I met this really neat girl, and she is like starting up a network marketing company, and she went to a conservative Christian school. We got on the subject of like why it seems like everybody's kind of going more tyrannical lately. And she was saying like how we're just not wanting to. I think they were telling everyone they had to leave their rooms a certain day. She said no, and they're like searching for her and stuff. And she was like, I don't understand this. Like, I'm excited to be around people like 10x who want to think big and grow big. And she actually is pretty close to a guy who works closely with Trump. So she said she might have an in with us to get to meet Trump. So
there we go.
That's pretty cool.
First big guest on the podcast. We'll just land a whammy.
Good jump on.
Forget all the little people. We'll just bring the big guy
on. So yeah, it was really cool.
Yeah, that's awesome. What was the best food you had? Because you were in Vegas. I've been to Vegas. Oh. My favorite part of Vegas was the food when I went. So, what was the best food you had while you were there?
Well, it was all the first 2 days were pretty rushed, so we were just eating in the hotel.
Okay.
But the last night we were there, we went to this place called Momofuku.
I think I've heard of that. Where is that? Where's that located on the strip? It's on the strip, right?
Yeah, it's in. Oh, I think it's in the Cosmopolitan.
Ah, yes. That makes sense, yes.
So I had like a really good ramen there, and then right next door they had this dessert place called the Milk Bar. Apparently it's really famous. So I had a compost cookie.
That sounds pretty darn good. Now I'm gonna have to take a trip to Vegas just for the food.
Yeah, we didn't do any gambling because honestly, like you couldn't even think about gambling because you go from a place where it's all talking about self-responsibility. You're like, I don't think I can.
I'm there with you. I went and I didn't gamble. And honestly, you could enjoy Vegas. Like, I don't know, like how you felt, like, but like, I think you could like enjoy Vegas without the gambling. Like, even if you're going to see, like, I know there's a lot of like musicians that go and do shows out there. So if you're going to see a show and just wanted to walk around and eat good food, and there's plenty to do in Vegas. I mean, they've got all sorts of different like tourist attractions there too that you can go do and see. But
yeah, I found. Well, I've learned from Zig Ziglar. He's a really well-known sales expert. He said that you should never drink when doing business at any level. And so I didn't have anything there to drink at Vegas. Didn't gamble, and I was so much happier because there were people at the 10x conference and they were like trying to like get drinks and like have a good time, and you could just tell their minds weren't there, so they weren't really engaging in high level conversations. So they were just kind of like talking about, isn't this a great time and stuff instead of what do you do? And
yeah.
So I think Vegas is a lot more fun if you just stay stay sober and run your pocketbooks.
Yeah, it also helps too, like when you're there for like an event like that with like other people that are kind of, got the same general values as you. I don't know. You can go down a dark hole in Vegas is all I'm saying.
Very true.
But that's great, man. That sounds awesome. I'm excited. I'm excited for next year now. Y'all got me all pumped up for this. Is it going to be back in Vegas next year? I know they did in Florida.
It's undecided at the moment. They're tossing up between Miami, Dallas, and Vegas, I think.
So, okay, cool. That's awesome.
Maybe do a live podcast from wherever the next location is.
Jake's thinking. Jake's trying to monetize this trip. The IRS this is a tax write-off.
Yeah,
if you're listening. Right. Tax
business travel.
Business travel.
Yeah.
Good thinking, Jake. Good thinking. Yeah, that's awesome. Before we get to our main topic for the evening and kind of discuss that a little bit, I do want to show the picture for all those of you that are watching. I do have the picture of the Alpha t-shirt. I think this is important just to show you very quickly. I will share this real quick. I don't know if you can see this. This is the back of the t-shirt. It says Alpha Nutrition Facts, serving size 1 alpha male. And it's got the daily value, testosterone at 1200%, guns owned, infinity, cigars 5 daily, strength 1000%, cars accumulating, and then caffeine overdosed. So that is the back. Let me pull up the front here because I also have the front. And the front looks a little bit like this. I don't know if you guys can see that.
Oh, that's sick.
Yeah, so that will be on the site shortly. So if you're interested in that, yeah, you should definitely go check it out. We'll probably have, I think, 3 or 4 different colors. It'll be in the athletic fit, which is my favorite fit. I think we've talked about that in the last podcast or 2 podcasts ago. It's the best fitting t-shirt we have. If you like that athletic style, it hugs the arms, shows off your triceps, biceps, chest, makes you look good for the ladies. So, I mean, it's hard to beat it. That way, if you're at the 10X conference next year and want to show off a little bit, you can wear one of these Alpha t-shirts. So you should go buy them now in preparation for next year's 10X conference. Or just, summer shredding. But let's move on. I wanted to talk to you guys today. Originally, I think we were going to do a podcast kind of along the lines of the Founding Fathers. We're going to do another one of those kind of like Foundations of Freedom podcast. But there was a lot going on in the news, especially with everything that's going on in East Palestine. So I thought, we can always talk about the Founding Fathers, but I think it's really important to talk about what's going on right now. Actually, what's been going on for it's almost been 3 weeks now, which is crazy that this is still going on. And nothing's really been resolved in any way, shape, or form with the situation in East Palestine. So I think we can talk about that real quick. I'll give a rundown for those of you who do not know what the current situation is. So on February 3rd, a train which belonged to Norfolk Southern, which is one of America's leading rail companies, it derailed in the small town of East Palestine, Ohio, right on the border of Pennsylvania. This was a pretty massive disaster. 14 tankers carrying thousands of gallons of different chemicals, including vinyl chloride, spilled. To deal with the spillage of the toxic chemicals, a controlled burn was conducted. It was said that this was done to resolve the situation, but you can look at this a lot of different ways. I don't know if this was the only option. I'm not an expert here, but it was definitely done to speed up the process of getting the railroad back open and operational. So then that controlled burn caused giant plumes of black smoke to be put into the air for several days. The site also leaked into the surrounding waterways from the spill, including the Ohio River. And the town was evacuated, and the EPA, went and did testing for about a week. And after about a week, the EPA, which is the Environmental Protection Agency, assured the public that drinking water was protected and the air was safe enough to come back home. So everybody returned. Since then, despite the claims of the area being safe from officials, locals have been complaining about having severe headaches, burning sensations in their lungs, irritated eyes, and livestock has been dying unexpectedly. I think there were several cases where household pets have been dying too. So that seems pretty serious to me. And there are many experts out there on pollution and this type of environmental catastrophes and hazards that say an event of this magnitude could be similar to that of a small nuclear explosion or detonation, and could take years to know the extent of the damage to both individuals' health and environmental health. So despite these warnings, state and federal officials have reassured the cities in the area around East Palestine and those in the path of the pollution, because obviously those black clouds filled with that pollution have blown. I think at one point they were blowing about a mile per hour to the northeast. I think there's been some reports in Buffalo of snow falling that smells like chemicals, which is slightly concerning. So yeah, the public officials, federal officials have reassured cities in the path of the pollution that they should not be concerned. So that's kind of just the big overview. One of my favorite news sources, Real News No Bullshit, which is a small independent, if you don't know, is a small independent news source that is gaining some traction, and they really are the most, at least in my opinion, that I see on a daily basis. They're posting the most unbiased, reliable information on most, not only events on a national magnitude, but also international magnitude. So if you haven't seen them before, go check them out on social media. They're pretty great. But they actually sent some reporters out to East Palestine because of the difference in what government officials were saying versus what the locals were saying. And so they conducted several interviews. Two of the interviews stuck out to me. One was Desiree, they didn't give her last name, but she's lived in East Palestine for close to 20 years. She has a household of 8, all of which are sick currently, including their dog, upon returning to their home. Their home is located less than 900 feet away from one of the tankers that crashed and burned, derailed and burned. And so they've been told that it's okay to return to their house. That you can literally see the tanker from the pictures from their backyard, which is crazy. And so, they're dealing with that, and she's essentially said, nothing's being done about this. Nobody's talking about this. The federal government essentially doesn't care. At least that's what it seems like. And it just is unbelievable to her that, you could have such a huge environmental catastrophe and she's allowed to go back home to a situation like that, where you've got toxic chemicals literally like in your backyard, or the remnants of that. And then Roger was the other one that's the other interview that stood out to me that they did. He's a disabled veteran who lives in East Palestine. His interview is more of a plea to the federal government and the president, for them to do something for, as I'll quote him. He said, do something for we the people. And he was talking about, how it's very disappointing that our president and our current federal government is so focused on helping the situation in Ukraine. And while he does support the Ukrainians' freedom and independence, he's frustrated that, President Biden hasn't visited the community. It's been 3 weeks since this all happened. Hasn't sent any aid. And, they're in Ukraine right now, sending probably billions more to their war effort. I know Roger also mentioned that as a taxpayer, the very least the federal government should be able to do in a situation like this is pay for some aid. I mean, they're taking our money anyway, right? The only money I think given to date, and that is as of February 21st, is the CEO of Norfolk Southern has he's tried to repair the situation. It's kind of just seems like an inconvenience thing for him. He's issued $1,000 checks to residents of East Palestine. That's about it. He said he's there for the community or whatever, but it doesn't seem like he really cares that much either. So that's kind of the facts. I don't know what you guys have to add to that, but that's kind of where we're at with the facts as of February 21st.
Yeah, I think it's interesting to note the change in narrative, given this environmental disaster compared to others. Whenever we experience a hurricane or earthquake, forest fire, any type of natural disaster, usually all we'll hear about is how it's all caused by climate change, and that will dominate the news headlines for weeks to come, following whatever incident has occurred. In this one, though, it's different in that the officials, the media, they want to move on with it. They don't even want to talk about this, which makes you wonder, like something that actually is directly affecting, we don't even know how many people's lives yet. We don't know how expansive this disaster and the effects of the radiation will be. So I think that makes it all the more suspicious, and I'm sure we'll dive into this in a few minutes on why this is being covered differently, why we're not making a bigger deal about it than in the past. Because I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I feel like it's not really being covered as much as, or at least to the extent that other disasters have been.
No, I'll go on my probably first of many rants here. This has been completely underreported. Seemingly, the federal government does not care at all about this. You have probably at least recently, one of the greatest environmental threats that has been caused by a disaster. It's probably the largest that we've seen in a while, that have direct impacts to not only the environment, not only our water, but also people's lives. And it's being completely covered up and ignored, seemingly because either our federal government doesn't want to handle it because it's a tricky situation. There's not an easy answer here, right? Either it's that or there's something, bigger at play, and I don't know which it is. I don't know if people are paid off by Norfolk Southern in the government. I don't know what the ties are there. I don't know what the deal is, but yeah, to say that this has been underreported, would be a complete understatement. I mean, this is for the news to be covering anything else right now is ridiculous, in my opinion. I mean, this is the threats this pose. You mentioned we don't even know, the magnitude of what this is, and I just want to give like a little bit of perspective here. So I mentioned in the facts that the Ohio River is one of the waterways which has been polluted with the toxic chemicals. That's not to mention all the air that's been polluted, right? I mean, if Buffalo, New York's already getting snow that smells like chemicals, I mean, that's a problem. But if it's in the Ohio River, I'm just going to pull up a little graphic here, guys. And this is a graphic of the Ohio River Basin. Now, why is this important? Well, if the Ohio River is affected by this, and we're talking, if we're looking at this map right here, can you guys see this map okay?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I'm just going to use, let me see, I think I can draw right here. So at the top of this screen, we've got the Ohio River. It kind of starts up here, northern Pennsylvania, right? But right down here, I'll just draw an X through it, is right where East Palestine is. That's the top, pretty much the northernmost point of the Ohio River Basin. Now, the Ohio River Basin, for those of you who are just listening to this, stretches from basically the border of Pennsylvania and Ohio, right where East Palestine is. Seems pretty convenient. It goes down through Ohio, borders West Virginia, goes through Kentucky, goes up to Indiana, goes all the way through the border of Indiana, Kentucky, Illinois border, and then it even affects some waterways in Tennessee as well. So you're talking southern Illinois, the majority of southern Indiana, almost all the waterways in Ohio, in Pennsylvania, West Virginia, like I said, Kentucky and Tennessee, and a small part of Virginia and North Carolina as well. So if we were just going to look at this from a perspective of, just water pollution, it would be pretty darn significant. I mean, that's just water pollution, not to mention all the other, air pollution, everything else going on here. And that's going to affect drinking water, that's going to affect water that's used for irrigation, that's going to affect the soil, that's going to affect everything, right? And obviously the Ohio River doesn't just stop. I think eventually it dumps into the Mississippi, makes its way all the way down to Louisiana. So like this is, and not to say that the pollution is significant enough to make it all the way down there, but I mean, this is, for it to be polluted basically at the start of the Ohio River Basin and then flow south is pretty darn concerning. So if you live in any of those states, you should be pretty upset that this is going on. Or at least be concerned that the federal government doesn't seem to really care that they potentially have one of the larger, river basins in the U.S. polluted. And that's the heartland of, a lot of agriculture too. So who knows what the effects will be there. It's the heartland of a lot of livestock production. So there's just a lot there, guys. I don't know. It gets me fired up. It gets me upset. It gets me pissed off. Biden's currently in Ukraine right now on some secret trip to negotiate how he can send more of our tax dollars over there. So it's, like, it just shows you where the priorities of our politicians are. It's just sick.
Yeah, I found it ironic as well how after refusing to send aid for 2 weeks, the government finally made a grant towards East Palestine, and that was only after Trump showed up there. I don't remember exactly, Tom, maybe you know what exactly he did there, if he made a speech or was just being a presence for the people, but it was another interesting timing how only after that they decided to clean up their act, I guess, and send or save face and send funds.
Yeah, I think Trump is going there tomorrow, actually. I think that was his plan.
Okay. So maybe it was after he announced his visit. I think that's what it was. Is that then, like a day later, I think was when the government reversed course and decided to make a grant.
Yeah, it's really strange. Well, I don't know. I can't say for sure, but it seems like it's too planned out. Because I don't know if you guys heard, but there was a police. No, I think it was a homeowner found a bomb on a railway and reported to the police. And we got it taken care of before the train came down the track on another place. So, and it's actually really easy to derail a train. Like, it's not that hard. So
yeah, you can just put something like over the tracks, right? I mean, technically, if it's a large enough object to derail it.
yeah, it's pretty scary. I wonder how to help these people. If there's like a water filter and air purifier you could get, that they could get to help them out. I know Berkey water filters are really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
If you can't get like something in the system for your house, but maybe people can go there and add those.
Yeah, I think like at this point, it's pretty clear that the people of East Palestine aren't going to get the aid they need from the federal government. So I think it's left up to us, fellow citizens, to kind of step up and pick up where the federal government's slacking. I mean, the fact that we lose half of our incomes to the federal or to taxes, both state and federal, and then they can't even step up when they really should. I mean, be taking. I mean, seriously, like if you pay somebody and they don't do their job, I don't know. It's frustrating, especially in situations like this where you would like to see, if you're a believer in any sort of federal government, this is the exact type of situation you would like to see the federal government step up and try to help out a little bit. If there's a unexpected natural disaster to a community like this, you would kind of expect that. So it's pretty disappointing. But to your point, Tom, I think this all seems like, this is, I think, where we're going to jump into the conspiracies a little bit. But this seems really planned out. It seems like there's a lot of coincidences here that don't make a lot of sense. But they do make a lot of sense because, they're a conspiracy. The first one I want to talk about, and this isn't even a conspiracy, this is fact. I talked about that one of the main toxic chemicals spilled was vinyl chloride. Well, funny enough, weeks before. When I say weeks before, this is like weeks before the disaster happened, weeks before the derailment. In January, the CDC changed its toxicology reports and FAQs on vinyl chloride, the main chemical that was burned off in the disaster. It was the first time, and get this, 17 years that these FAQs and guidelines had been changed. So the last time was in 2006, and in 2006, the main difference was it included significantly more information on possible diseases or health concerns around this chemical and what you could do to prevent them. So they basically just removed helpful information from the CDC's website. I mean, does that make any sense to you guys? I mean, and 2 weeks before this happens, funny coincidence? I think not. Just to kind of tie this into something on a world scale, because the CDC obviously isn't, the CDC obviously doesn't just affect us and health guidelines here in the US, but it also affects a lot of the rest of the world. In the World Economic Forum meeting and in their 2030 agenda, the World Economic Forum says that the government will be allowed to forcibly remove citizens from their property and homes if the land and water they live on are too polluted to live on. It then moves on to state that the government will place these people in their smart cities that they're going to build, and the citizens will have no choice but to either live in the smart city or leave the land that they were on. So if you really want to go down a rabbit hole here and talk about conspiracy theories, especially with this, you've got the CDC changing guidelines on one of the main chemicals in this, train derailment, burning the toxic chemical situation. You've got the possibility of a large portion of what I'd like to think of as like Eastern, it's not really Eastern Midwest and it's not really East Coast, but a lot of that region, that like kind of heartland region around the Ohio River Basin, with the possibility of being polluted. Who knows what the extent is? We'll probably won't know for several years. And then you've got the World Economic Forum with their plans, and you've got all the U.S. officials. You got J.B. Pritzker, governor of Illinois, at the World Economic Forum this year. I mean, it's sick. And they're talking about removing citizens from land if they deem the land or water to be too polluted to live on. So if you really want to talk about some serious high-level collusion there, I don't know what you guys think about that. I started putting these dots together today, and I was like, holy cow. Like, not to say that this is it, but this could be like the first step in events like this to control human people.
Yeah, just looking at it at first glance, for the World Economic Forum, when they say that they're planning to forcibly remove people if their cities or properties are too polluted, it's like we live in arguably the most sanitary country in the world. I know it has its faults, but that it, relative to other nations, this is probably as clean and healthy of an environment as you're going to get. And yeah, so it just makes one wonder, why are they it's almost like they're planning for that to happen.
Yeah,
to include that stipulation in there.
Yeah, and I'll tell you guys, like, I've seen some of these smart city plans, because they're, if you look them up, they're planning on building several in the Middle East, and they also want to build some in the U.S. too. But these smart cities lend right into control of. I mean, these cities are built for the government to be able to control population. You've got public transportation. Nobody will need cars. You hop in a tube and go to work. You be fed whatever they give you. you'll own nothing. You'll just, you'll rent from the government, all these things. And I think if you really want to look at it this way, you can definitely look at this through the lens of they're tearing down every single construct that lends to freedom and the freedom of choice, and they are creating right under our noses. They're creating a utopian society, and it's not really a utopian society. It's essentially a society that's ruled and governed by the elite few, and they'll be able to control the entire world population by just a flip of a switch, essentially. When you start to look at these city plans and all this other stuff, it's like being in a prison. So it's pretty scary to see our land being polluted, and at the same time they're planning out these, what I like to think of as giant prison cell cities, where they'll be able to control everything.
If I just turned on the show now, right before your last statement, I'd have thought you were reading from some dystopian novel, like a 1984 Brave New World. The way you described that,
it's sick. It's, there's a point where progress comes at the detriment of human freedom, and I think we might have reached that point. And I think there's a lot of people out there that want to be able to control every aspect of, the population's decisions. And what a great way to do it than to take away everything that they have and then give them everything that they need.
No, this reminds me of that Atlas Shark book I was reading. And then me and Rand also wrote this other little, it's like a itty bitty little book. It's like 2 hours listening to it, called Anthem. And it's essentially people rediscovering how good the world was before communism took full control. And it's like, have you guys heard about that one? Let's say the idea of like there's 5 different sectors, and each person goes in those sectors, and then the person that doesn't fit in any one of them is called divergent. So it's about this girl and a few other divergents that pick up. Yeah,
that was a great. That was a good. Yeah, I like that. That was a good. It was a book and movie series, correct?
Right. Yeah, I've only seen the first one. I don't remember it too well.
Yeah.
But I just remember the theme of being like breaking out of the different sectors, and it's really interesting because I've been thinking about this more and more, but there's really 2 mindsets in the world, especially from going to 10x. There's the mindset of understanding that the world is limitless, so there's an unlimited amount of opportunity that we can build upon. Like, if you think about wealth is created through economic trade. And the other side is that they think everything is limited, so this is all we've got right now, so they want to take it all for themselves. So there's like this continuous fight between the two. One saying, no, life is limitless. God has given us a mind and a heart and soul, and we're coming towards Him, and the more we use our mind to make products that help people, then that's how we make people's lives better. And the other side is saying, no, this is all limited. We're running out of everything. The world is going to be coming, like collapsing on itself if we don't steal everything. It's so terrible because these people that are going along with these limiting beliefs and ideologies are the ones that say that you can't do good things too blind. You shouldn't aspire to be great. You shouldn't aspire to love. You should just hold on to what you have and like make the best of what you can do right now. It's like, well, now you need to think of the world as like an open place that, based upon our use of our mind, we can work to make a product, and a product can make lives better. And that ability is limitless because every year we're shown new people coming up with ideas that blow the other ideas out of the water. Like, no one thought the Wright brothers could fly a plane. No one thought that Graham Bell could talk through a wire. No one thought that you could make a light bulb that actually worked. No one thought that you could transfer electricity without wires. And that's what Tesla found out. So there's all these like preconceived notions, and then the entrepreneurs or the inventors break through them, and then they make our lives that much better. So then it frees up our time to move on to the next thing. And these, it just makes me so upset because these people, they're enough to go around, destroy everything because they don't believe that there's something better than what's now. They don't believe in the future.
Mm-hmm. Or they're just too greedy they believe in. I think a lot of times people become so greedy and so power hungry that they lose sight of they've got this like picture of what they think the future should be, and they become so close-minded to any other ideas that their idea is the only way, or they have a very cynical approach to just like human beings and like how human beings function. Like I'm trying to remember the guy's name. He's part of the World Economic Forum. He's the advisor, or he's an advisor to I'm blanking on Tom. What's the main guys?
Klaus.
Klaus. Yeah, so he's an advisor to Klaus. His name's Yuval Noah Harari, I think. I don't know if you guys have ever heard him. He literally believes that human beings can and should be treated as hackable animals. Essentially, that you can program the human being to do whatever you want it to, and then that the population should be treated as hackable animals. So you can train us to do whatever you want, essentially, is what his thought is. So he's in this constant battle that a lot of these elites have for this utopian world. They just look at us as a bunch of hackable animals. I mean, they literally look at us as animals, like a subprime species, the same way Hitler looked at the majority of the population of the world and said, the Aryan race is, a superior race. And that's legitimately how these people think and act that are running the world. So that's frightening to hear, like blatantly say it like that too. Not even trying to hide their agenda, but literally like just going out and saying, oh yeah, humans are like these hackable animals. I mean, it's insane. It's disgusting. It's really what it is. But when will people wake up? And they've got most people brainwashed with TikTok and all these other things. So it doesn't even really matter. They've distracted us with every stupid little thing that they can, and they can distract us with those things. We won't see what's actually going on. Jake, there is one thing. I don't know if you saw this. Going back, kind of circling back to the East Palestine thing. Did you see that whole thing that's going on with? There was like somebody that posted this, but it was like White Noise was this Netflix original from 2022. And it's literally about a small town in Ohio named East Palestine, Ohio, and that's actually where they filmed it too. And the movie was filmed and shot there, and it was about a town that had to evacuate due to a tanker truck colliding with a train containing toxic chemicals. This literally came out last year and was on Netflix.
And it was actually in East Palestine.
They filmed it in East Palestine, and
wow,
in the movie, it takes place in East Palestine, Ohio.
That's insane. I knew there was a movie about an oil tanker colliding with a train, releasing toxic chemicals, but I did not realize that it was actually in that very location.
Yeah, here, I'll just pull up the. Even CNN reported on this. They said Netflix film has eerie comparison to toxic Ohio train crash.
Wow.
So when CNN's throwing stuff out there, like this isn't just the what most people would consider the alt-right, conspiracy theorists coming together with their tin hats, throwing together some crazy crap. But no, this is legit. I mean, this is crazy. Yeah, for there to be an apocalyptic show that was filmed in East Palestine, took place in East Palestine in the show, and had the similarities of a tanker truck colliding with a train containing toxic chemicals. It's just crazy. Like, I mean, now I kind of want to go watch the show, because I'm like, how much of this is scripted? Like, it almost feels like, to a certain extent, reality is somewhat scripted here, because it's like, I just don't like. I don't know how much. Like, if you were somebody, did they just see this and they're like, you know what, let's give it a shot? Like,
yeah, you think of all the railroads in the country, all the trains, all the tanker trucks driving around, and it just so happened to be in that
happy coincidence. Coincidence? I think not. That just seems. That's the thing about this whole situation, and I don't want to take anything away from the situation. I don't want to take anything away from obviously the people that are affected by this directly. It's a horrible thing. I think if you know of a way to help the people of East Palestine and all those affected by this, by all means you should. And I feel like it's our duty as fellow citizens to help out help out each other, right? So I don't want to take anything. I don't want to trivialize this in any means. But the reason I think it's important to bring up these conspiracies is point to, and they're not even conspiracies really. I shouldn't even call them conspiracies. But the reason we should look at these cases where it makes us question what is going on, it's not just for us to think of like, oh, this is like a crazy conspiracy theory, let's just throw this out and just kind of forget about it, right? Like, these are things that everybody should be thinking about. Like, why is the CDC changing toxicology reports and FAQs on the main chemical that was burned 2 weeks before this happens? Why is there a TV show that literally predicts this a year before it happens in the exact town with very similar circumstances? Why isn't the federal government doing a thing about this? Like, these aren't conspiracies. These are just questions that everybody should be asking themselves. And if it leaves some, I mean, like, I don't know. I ask myself those questions, and then I feel like this sense of unrest and unease. And I think most people would feel that way if they really sat there and thought about it for a little bit. And we're being trained, I think, by the media sources and all these other things, just to kind of take things at a glance. Oh, it happened, and then just let it breeze on by, right? So I don't know. If anything, I think it's just important to understand what's going on here and understand, even if this was just a all these things were coincidences, and this is just a completely I mean, it still is a completely tragic situation, but a situation that was all happened by unfortunate luck. We still have to look at it for what it is, and it's at the end of the day, it's going to affect a lot of lives here, and we need to understand how we can help support and protect those around us that could be affected by this, and then help our communities and our fellow citizens, because at the end of the day, that's what it's all about. And so, yeah, it's a little bit disturbing, guys. That's why I wanted to talk about it. I wanted to get your guys' opinions, but it's a little, yeah, it's scary to see.
Yeah, it's just been like, seems like every day you're hit with another big world thing, and you're like, it's not like stuff that you can be like, well, it won't really affect us. It's like, well, this is affecting everybody in some way or another. And you just want to help and stop it for the best way to, at least to. Seems like, that there has been a lot more change in people's trusting of most mainstream media. I mean, I think Trump had a lot to do with exposing all of that. He said that he wasn't the one that caused it. They actually just showed their colors when he was around. But it's so interesting how it's almost like everyone is trying to discredit responsibility because they don't want to accept that something happened that was really bad on their watch. So they can just kick it down the line and then just throw it away and hope someone fixes it. Then they're like, oh, it's okay, but someone better was able to fix it. And Trump having to go there himself to go help out. I mean, this isn't the first time Trump has done that. I mean, he was at the floor of 9/11 and had his workers helping people out. He had, in 2008, when Obama was pulling out all the soldiers, they didn't have enough planes to get everybody out. So Trump went and bought a whole bunch of planes to fly all the soldiers back home. It's like the really good people are the first there to serve. And then the bad guys are so embarrassed, they're like, oh, we should probably go over there now. It's like, yeah, it's just so gross. It's like, why have people lost their hearts so much? Like, what are they going to go home to if they're not going to try to help?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, I think you nailed it right on the head there. Yeah, I think that if you're listening and you know of a way, it's always tough during these things because there's always the wolves in kind of in the middle of the crowd of sheep, and they like to take advantage of these situations. But if you know of a way that you can support the people of East Palestine or the people affected by this, whether that's donating your time, your money, sending clean water out to them, sending water filtration devices, whatever it is, I think that's kind of our duty as fellow Americans to help our fellow man out. I don't know of any specifically at the moment. Do you guys know of any? And maybe what we can do is we can try to find some good ones and link them in the show notes so people can go help and support those affected by the situation.
The first one that comes to mind is the live straw. I know those are sold everywhere. So that might be your best way because they're cheap and they work really well for most things,
Mm-hmm.
and you can buy them really fast. I noticed Berkeys are sold out quickly because they can't keep up with demand. But
yeah, I have a Life Straw. I have a Life Straw water bottle. Works great because then you can just fill up the water bottle with water, and the straw is built into it. That's a good one. I think you can literally pick them up anywhere. I think you can get them on Amazon for like $20. Depending on the size, I think they start at 20. But yeah, I mean, if you live locally to the area, just getting out volunteering. I know Salvation Army, Red Cross, all those places were out helping and doing their part. But it's just one of those things that we all should, if we do our best to help out our fellow citizen, help out our fellow American, and hopefully there's some positive resolution to all this, and the doom and gloom is all just I'd love for the doom and gloom to be all just a conspiracy. I really would. This is like one of those things that I actually hope for to be a conspiracy rather than the truth. Because I'd really like this just to be a situation that was handled in a poor way, and people get together and support each other, and we get through this. But that's all I got on this. Now I feel like I've let myself down. Felt like I put myself in a bad mood. I do want to, before we leave tonight, we should probably talk about something positive. So, I want to discuss. The next couple episodes that we have planned, just because I think there is a bit to look forward to there. So I want to give like the listeners a little bit of an idea of where we're going, especially. So we started the kind of Foundations of Freedom series, which I think is pretty cool. And if you haven't listened to those, you should go listen to them. We're covering everything about the founding of our great nation, going back to the founding fathers, and then kind of moving forward. So we talked about George Washington. We talked about the Sons of Liberty, and we talked about Thomas Jefferson, John Adams in the last one. That was a cool one. But I think moving forward, there's a few. I think we got a few topics. I think we're gonna do our next one on Thomas Jefferson, and then we're gonna get into some stuff on the Civil War, and Abraham Lincoln, and kind of the whole time period leading up to the Civil War, which I think is really interesting. So we're excited to bring those to you guys. We're gonna roll those out. This week was supposed to be one of those weeks. But we'll roll those out every other week, and then have a guest come join us in between, because it's fun to have the guests on the show too. So that's kind of what you can look forward to over the next few months or so. I think all three of us would love to do an in-person podcast, so we're still trying to figure that out. We all live on like opposite sides of the United States, so it kind of does get tricky to like coordinate a live podcast. But that is a goal for 2023. I don't know if we talked about our goals in any of the other podcasts, but that is a goal. And then the last thing I wanted to mention is I am working on getting the podcast up on Apple Podcasts. So I know I got a few comments from some family members and friends that they were looking for it on Apple Podcasts and couldn't find it. We're not currently on Apple Podcasts. We're on Spotify, YouTube, and you can get it through Anchor. But I'm working on the Apple Podcast, so stay tuned for that. I'll get that up. We'll get that going. But yeah, big things coming for the podcast. We're gonna have Donald Trump on the podcast. Actually, we don't know that yet.
One day, hopefully.
We'll let Tom arrange that.
That'll be the live one.
Yeah,
live from Mar-a-Lago.
No, hey, by the time we do, it'll be live from Air Force One, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, it would be awesome. Yeah, so
I mean, we still have to get our Turning Point USA people on too.
yeah, I know. Yeah, we gotta get what's her name on?
Isabel.
Isabel.
You know, I hate to break it to you, Tom.
She
She is married, so there's no in for you there.
Oh, I know. Don't worry.
Okay. I was just making sure you knew. I didn't want you to get your hopes up.
Oh no, I found that out a while ago. So.
Okay, good. Yeah, but no, but if you listeners have any ideas for topics you want us to cover, whether it's the Foundations of Freedom podcast, talking about our nation's great history and rich culture, or if you've got a topic you want us to cover with one of our guests, we will try to bring on a guest that is an expert in whatever topic you want us to cover. So let us know down in the comments below. And if you have not already, you should subscribe on Spotify and YouTube so you get the regular updates when the podcast posts, as well as when we post the shorts on YouTube and Instagram. You can check us out on Instagram, the Green Dragon Podcast. You can check us out on YouTube, the Green Dragon Podcast. We're there. We're pretty active on both. So if you message us, comment, we'll respond. But with all that being said, this week, stay strong, be vigilant, be a good American, but most importantly, be a good neighbor. Support those who are around you and fight for what is right.